Sparta, the first fascist state or a model society? Sparta is often regarded as one of the most enigmatic and unsettling states of ancient Greece. Its customs, institutions, and way of life baffled outsiders, even fellow Greeks, and in the eyes of some modern scholars, the Spartan system has even been cited as a prototype for what would later become fascist ideology. But before we go any further, it's important to note that the Spartans themselves never used that name. Their state was officially known as Lacedemon, while the term Sparta originally referred only to a cluster of 4, later 5, settlements located along the right bank of the Eurotas River. So, technically, they were Lacedemonians. You may recall the distinctive Lambda, the Greek letter, often seen on their shields. This wasn't mere decoration. It helped Spartans distinguish themselves from their enemies in battle, such as the Messenians, whose shields bore the letter mu, or the Athenians, who used an owl. Another term often associated with their region is Laconia, and it's from this word that we derive the modern term laconic, meaning brief and to the point. We'll come back to that. But for now, let's begin at the beginning. Sparta wasn't always unique. Its story stretches from the era of the Trojan War, around the 12th century BCE, to its decline and absorption by Rome in 146 BCE. And archaeological evidence suggests that, during the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, Spartan architecture, pottery, and daily life weren't particularly different from those in other Greek city-states. It wasn't until the 6th century BCE that Sparta began to change. This shift is most commonly associated with the legendary figure of Lycurgus, though historians now agree that the so-called laws of Lycurgus were not enacted all at once, but instead reflect a gradual set of reforms carried out over time. And those reforms were radical. Sparta was ruled not by a single monarch, but by 2 kings simultaneously. Alongside them was a council of 30 elders, the Gerousia, which included both kings and acted as a senior advisory body. There was also a citizen assembly, the Apella, which voted on major state decisions, and, perhaps most importantly, the 5 annually elected ephors, magistrates who held immense power, including the right to arrest a king and place him under investigation. Land in Sparta was considered state property. It was divided into equal plots, known as kleroi, which were assigned to Spartan citizens. These citizens formed the class of the homoioi, literally the equals. Yet, interestingly, Spartans were forbidden to farm their own land. Instead, agricultural labor was carried out by the Helots, the local population who had been conquered, enslaved, and made property of the state. Each Helot family was expected to deliver a fixed share of the harvest to the Spartan who had been granted their land. This system allowed Sparta to ensure food security and avoid famine. And while it might seem surprisingly collectivist for its time, it wasn't entirely unique. A similar structure had existed on Crete, and it's likely that Lycurgus took inspiration from there. But Sparta's campaign against inequality went even further. Ownership of gold and silver was forbidden. While coins had already spread across most of Greece, Spartans used cumbersome iron rods as currency. These were long, heavy, and deliberately impractical, making personal wealth both inconvenient and, eventually, socially unacceptable. Greed was discouraged. Status came not from riches, but from loyalty, discipline, and conformity. However, this came at a cost. As trade and crafts became less valued, artisan skills declined. Sparta sacrificed cultural development in favor of unity and control. To maintain cohesion, the state promoted a powerful ideology of male military brotherhood. Individuality was seen as dangerous. Those who challenged the collective were confronted by zealous citizens, self-appointed defenders of Spartan values. Private life was viewed as a potential threat to public order. The family unit was intentionally weakened. Loyalty belonged not to household, but to the state. One of the most striking institutions was the Sysisia, communal dining groups where 15 to 20 men shared daily meals. These gatherings helped sustain social equality and functioned as a platform for passing down military experience from older warriors to the younger generation. Child-rearing was also a matter of national concern. According to Plutarch, one of our main sources on Sparta, infants deemed weak or deformed were thrown into a chasm known as the apothetae. But modern research challenges this. In 2007, anthropologist Theodoros Pitzios and his team examined bones found in the area. They belonged not to infants, but to young men aged 18 to 35. It's possible these were the remains of Messenian warriors defeated in battle, not rejected newborns. Regardless, the state took control of children early. At age 7, boys were placed into groups called Agoge, herds. They lived, trained, and learned together under harsh supervision. Obedience, endurance, and group loyalty were the foundations of their upbringing. As they grew older, the discipline became more severe. Boys went barefoot, wore the same cloak year-round, and slept on bedding made of reeds they had to collect themselves. Hunger was common, a deliberate feature of the system. Education focused on reading, writing, and above all, military excellence. Other subjects, including philosophy, art, and science, were banned. Intellectual pursuits were considered distractions. What mattered was the ability to obey, to suffer, and to fight. Curiously, Sparta was also considered one of the most musical cities in Greece. Songs and flutes were used in battle to maintain rhythm and morale. Music was seen as a tool for unity, not self-expression. Completing the full cycle of military education was a requirement for citizenship. And across the Greek world, Sparta's system was admired for producing highly disciplined soldiers. Plutarch even claimed that Spartans viewed war itself as a form of rest, a break from the intensity of daily training. The Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BCE has become legendary. While King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans are remembered as heroes, it's worth noting that they were joined by between 5,000 and 7,000 other Greeks who held off the Persian army for 2 full days. Herodotus estimated the Persian force at over 2.5 million, likely exaggerated. But modern scholars suggest a number closer to 60 or 80,000, still massive for the time. On the third day, under threat of being outflanked, the bulk of the Greek army retreated. Leonidas, his guard, and about 500 Thespians stayed behind, fighting to the death to protect the withdrawal. Spartan women also defied Greek norms. In most city-states, women were confined to the home, excluded from politics, and kept from physical training. In Sparta, it was different. Girls were organized into groups, trained in athletics, and taught to be physically strong and outspoken. This produced a generation of confident, assertive women who played a visible role in society. Their sharp tongues and independence were famous, and sometimes feared, even by their husbands. To Spartans, this wasn't unnatural. It was expected. Women were part of the collective. Mothers sent their sons to war with the phrase, "with your shield," or "on it." And if their sons failed to show courage, those same mothers rejected them with contempt. Many Greek philosophers admired Sparta as the closest thing to an ideal hoplite republic, a society of equals, governed by law, free of tyranny. Sparta was stable, disciplined, and unusually consistent in its values. But it was also closed. Foreigners couldn't settle in Sparta, and citizens were forbidden to leave without state permission. This isolation, combined with heavy reliance on Athenian sources, has contributed to the mythologization of Spartan life. Plato based parts of his Republic and laws on the Spartan model. Yet even he, along with Aristotle, acknowledged that Sparta excelled only in war and physical discipline. Its courage and order were admirable, but this came at the expense of culture, innovation, and critical thought. Now, back to the original question. Was Sparta fascist? Certainly, its militarism, hierarchy, and collectivism appealed to fascist thinkers, including Hitler himself. But that doesn't make it a fascist state. Ancient Rome used fasces and salutes long before Mussolini, and we don't call Rome fascist. Real fascism includes dictatorship, racial purity, the suppression of legal rights, and an all-powerful centralized state, none of which existed in Sparta. So while comparisons may be tempting, they don't hold up to historical scrutiny. Let's end where we began, with Spartan brevity. When Philip of Macedon, father of Alexander the Great, threatened Sparta with total destruction, he sent a message. "I have conquered all of Greece. I have the finest army in the world. Surrender now. If I take Sparta by force, if I break down your gates, if I breach your walls, I will destroy your people and level your city." The Spartans replied with one word: if. If you've made it this far, thank you. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was Sparta a model society, or something much darker? Give the video a like if you found it interesting, and subscribe to the channel if history is your thing. Until next time, remember, those who don't know their past have no future.